Alright, Travis Wayne Goodsill. It's getting to be rush hour here, so nothing I can do about the background noise, and the air unit is obsolete, so that's nothing I can do about that either. This video is going to talk about the thinking of the wealthy and why they think they can get away with hoarding billions upon billions upon billions. And yes, we're talking about the LDS Church. In Mark chapter 12, verse 41, and Jesus sat over against the treasury, and behold how the people cast money into the treasury, and many that were rich cast in much. The church, under Elder Oaks, back in 2016, was interviewed by the Deseret News, and he informed the Deseret News, and thus Mormondom, that the church gives $40 million on average per year to the poor and the needy. Isn't that great? That's a lot of money, isn't it? Not in comparison with multi-billions. Do the percentage. It's not even a tenth. There came a certain poor widow. Now, if you understand, a widow is a woman who has no husband. He's dead. And back in those days, women weren't really capable of working. So, all widows are poor, unless somebody's taking care of them. In this particular case, she has to do her own work on her own, and is not able to make much, to get as much money out of it. But she threw in 2 mites, which was a tiny little bit, nowhere near a talent, which make a farthing. And he called unto his disciples, and he said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that this poor widow hath cast more in. Do you understand that? Percentage-wise, the poor pay more than the rich. Than all they which have cast into the treasury. For all they, the rich, did cast in of their abundance, which means the profit or the interest. It's not their expenses. It's not before expenses. This is after expenses are paid and their needs are taken care of. It's the abundance. And so they cast in of their abundance. So they're not giving all their abundance, they're giving of their abundance. But she of her want did cast in all that she had, even all her living. And so you sort of wonder how she's surviving, if she's giving all that she makes, which is just 2 mites, a farthing, which is everything she has in regards to money. But I hope the rich who watch this, and I doubt there are any, understand this concept, because those in government have completely neglected this, purposely neglected this, and they play on the ignorance of the people. So when you think that the poor just need to work harder, they need to just go get a job, they can't. because they're already paying far more for their cost of living than the rich who have a high-paying job that allows them to have a house for a family, with the wife also having a car and credit cards and a wardrobe, seasonal wardrobe. And people don't understand this. My parents didn't understand this. I was a teenager during the 80s, and that was when Reagan began the trickle-down economic principle, or practice, or con, in which if you give to the rich corporations, those rich corporations will trickle down the money to the lowly employees at the bottom of the pyramid. And no, the corporations then quickly said thanks and reinvested it into their own companies so that they made more abundance. And that's what we're facing today with the church, with finances. They're taking the abundance out and investing it. So if you haven't heard the news, that's the latest scandal of the church. It's no longer the $100 billion in tithing. That's old news now. What was found out from that, though, was that Ensign Peak had invested, have investments of an extra $40 billion, and it shows that the church does indeed control much that goes on in the world, because that's what you do when you're a multi-billion-dollar company. You control other companies. You control the internet, you control social media, you control gas and oil, you control food, you control energy, and the church is involved in all of it. So, Business Insider is the source for that. And so, the church isn't really giving anything to charity. It's 0.000 at least, and then some numbers. That kind of percentage is the value of the peso, or the value of Central American or South American currency, Venezuelan currency even, to the American dollar. The church, let me do a transfer to flip through my digital scriptures. Let's see, 1 talent, 3, whoops, 5, okay. Alright, Matthew. Yeah, the church is claiming that they're following the scripture about the parable of the talents. And this is the parable of the talents. It says, for the kingdom of heaven. So, okay, exaltation. It's actually a symbol of the kingdom of God on earth, which is what the church understands correctly, because they're saving this money for the kingdom on earth, for when Christ comes. He's already here if they've been paying attention to the signs. And they've been watching my videos on the whole topic of who he is and where he is and where he's been and all that stuff. But for the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents. This is money. If you're thinking this is Oh, I can play the piano, that's my talent. It's not what it's talking about here. These have to do with money, but it's the kingdom of heaven. And so there's a symbolism that's going on in this parable, and that's what the church is purposely misleading Mormons about. He gave 5 talents to one, and to another 2. Oh, I thought it was 3. That's why I couldn't find it first. And to another 1, and to every man according to his several ability. So these 3 people were given 5, 2, or 1 because of their abilities. And so, yes, you can say their talents got them the amount of talents that they were given, because he knew that they could get more from that. And straightway took his journey. So you must understand that the man is the last day's Messiah. And he gives money, which is a symbol. They're supposed to develop, invest in those, and that's why the church says, well, we're investing for the second coming of the Messiah, of Jesus. And because he goes on a journey, he's gone. And so in the meantime, the servants have to increase the 5, the 2, and the 1. And so you have, he that received 5 talents went and traded with the same. And so it's not the same as today. Investment is completely different. Back then, it was a situation where you take the money and you buy something with the money that you then produce goods that you then turn around to sell. That's how you invest back then in those days. So, for example, 5 talents, you go buy 5 talents worth of wheat seed. Then you have farmland also with the talents, and the hoe and the sickle and all that's needed to farm the land. And you'd even have to have servants as well. 5 talents is more than enough to do that with. And so what you would do is buy everything you need to invest in farming for wheat. And then you plant the wheat, you grow the wheat, harvest the wheat, sell the wheat, and you're supposed to get more than 5 talents worth from your investment. That's how it would work. And so the one who had 5, let's see, he that received 5 went and traded the same and made another 5 talents. So yeah, he got 10 talents now to show for the 5 that he was given. And likewise, he that received 2, he had gained another 2. And so when you look at the investment today versus the investment back then, his investment helped society, because somebody has to buy the wheat, and what does wheat get used for? Bread making. And so that goes to then is sold to people who want to eat, to survive. That's what you live off of. And so the talents are going into the community to help the economy, help the people. Today's system of investing only helps the rich. It does not help the regular person. It does not help the poor. And that's where the difference is. And that's what the church is not informing you. is that the money they take out from their abundance that we Mormons have given them, they then invest that for their own investment. It doesn't go towards some kind of an investment where people in society can benefit from. And like I told you, 40 million is worthless. It's not helping anybody but those who got from the 40, but it was only temporary. And so I hope you understand that the poor pay more than the rich. That when the poor are forced to pay 10% to the church in tithing, and it's forced, it's not a donation. If you cannot go to the temple to receive your endowments because you're not a full tithe payer, tithing is now required. It is not a donation. And so the church is deceiving you, calling it a donation. It's a protection racket, by definition. And the poor who give up their lives so that they can go to the temple because they believe that the church is the true church of God, they pay more than the rich who give of their abundance in tithing. The poor are the more faithful Mormons. And the poor are the ones who suffer the most in the church because they're neglected. And to have the church come out with all these investments where they now control these companies to protect the church. We don't want bad critics like Travis Wayne Goodsell telling bad stuff about us. Silence him. Use your analog programs and your analytical data to get him silenced. Did you know that's how it works? And so the church then is able to put out the lies and deceptions which flood the internet, flood YouTube, flood Facebook, and all of us critics. You have to actually know how to search to find us. Now, yes, there are some critics who will participate in the money-making scheme of YouTube, and so YouTube gives them a little extra incentive because they're paying to play. But I'm not going to pay to play. I mean, it's criminal in the dating online service where you have to pay in order to communicate with a woman. That's prostitution. They don't want to call it that because they say, oh, no, they're not, it's not hookups. What do you think's supposed to be the outcome here? Guys get on there so that they can hook up with a woman, and then women likewise, whether they want to call it marriage or not. It's all for sex. So, and then I guess there, if I remember, I'm not sure if it was Plenty of Fish. I think it was Plenty of Fish. They ask you if you want to hook. I think it's, I can't remember what it's called, but well, anyway, regardless. So understand that the church is twisting the scriptures to justify their criminal behavior. That's what they're doing. They're still lying and deceiving. Like I said, I'm Mormon, born and raised, going on 50 years now. I know what the church has been doing. I know what's going on. All I had to do was watch R-rated movies and, oh, okay, that's what the church is doing. That's why they don't want you to watch R-rated movies. Has nothing to do with the sex and violence. It has everything to do with covering up their crimes. Because if you see what actual crimes are, you'll make the connection. Because apparently, the Book of Mormon in and of itself isn't enough to convince Mormons that the church is following the bad examples, such as the Great and Abominable Church. Exactly like the Great and Abominable Church. You list the Great and Abominable Church's actions and appearance, then you put the church next to it. Oh my God, they're the same. And so then you have the story of the Zoramites, even, and King Noah. But the Zoramites, what was the situation there? The rich Zoramites, they were the landowners. They were making abundance. So they got to worship. The ones who no longer were employed were not paying their tithing and were denied the ritual observances. Exact same pattern. The Book of Mormon has been warning Mormons about their own church after Joseph Smith was murdered. And Mormons are just, I don't see it. No, Book of Mormon's true, but no, the church is true. The church and the Book of Mormon cannot both be true. Do you understand that? The prophets and the Book of Mormon cannot both be true. Because the prophets, the church, are in direct contradiction with the Book of Mormon. Direct contradiction. And if you as a Mormon cannot see it, if you refuse to accept it, if you refuse to liken the scriptures unto yourselves, that comes from the Book of Mormon, you know. That's where you've heard it from. You have no one to blame but yourself. The church is a fraud. You are getting scammed out of your money. And lo and behold, last night, ABC4 News Utah reported that the federal government has found that Utahns have lost in online scams $40 million last year. Utahns are the biggest suckers for scams because the church has groomed you for them. That's why you have all these pyramid scams in Utah. As the church invests in one of those pyramid scams, USANA. I didn't see any others. I didn't recognize immediately anyway. But there was a huge long list. The church itself is a pyramid scheme with their recruitment. Who pays for the recruitment? We do. Our parents do. Not the church. They don't pay for it. They may pay for travel, maybe. Maybe. Depends on whether the money that we're supposed to give each month to the church to cover our bills and such covers the cost of the travel. But we are paying for the recruitment. And what do the new recruits do? They pay the church in the racketeering of the protection tithing, the fire insurance. That's why they don't want you to watch the Godfather series. You know, that's why they don't want you to watch any of the criminal organization movies, because you will learn how a criminal organization is run. how it is organized. And then you'll go, hey, the church does that. Hey, that's what the church does. Hey. And then you come out of your stupor. You come out of your slumber. So, all right. It's so frustrating because the church controls who gets to watch me on YouTube. Because if I were given full free reign on YouTube, I would be cranking up as many as others are making in views. I would be the recognizable threat to the church by others. The church already sees me as a threat. That's why they're shutting me down. So that's what you need to understand, is all of these other critics who've got skyrocketing views, the church ain't concerned about them. They're not the real threat. Guys like me are.